All right, everyone, let's bring the music in for a landing, and let's bring ourselves in for a landing together. So I'll invite you to close your eyes if that's comfortable for you. And if not, just allow them to be at half mast, the gentle downward gaze. And welcoming yourself here, now. I think we often forget to allow ourselves to fully arrive. So can you really allow yourself to arrive right here, right now? Allow yourself to sink into the surface you're sitting on. Letting gravity have its way with you. And feeling the crown of the head rise up. Just a natural lengthening of the spine with minimal effort. Legs, hips relaxed, crown floating upward, spine long, and then just allowing that to create lots of space in your body. Relax around the length. Then bring your attention to your breath. The breath is always there to support you to become more present. It's kind of amazing how it just keeps going, whether we pay attention or not. You might even want to offer some gratitude right now for your breath, that it just keeps flowing no matter what. You might hold it, you might pause, and then something in you will always initiate the next. And then bringing your attention to any sensations you feel in your body. You might notice the surface you're sitting on or leaning back against. You might notice sensations on your skin from the air around you. You might even notice internal sensations. See where your attention goes when you invite yourself to notice pure sensation. And then notice, does your mind want to label the sensations as good or bad, desirable, undesirable? Minds do that. See if then you can just come back to the sensation, hot, cold, tight, loose. See if you notice things change as you're paying attention. What was a moment ago is no longer. If you get lost in thought, bring the attention right back to the breath. There it is again, moving in, moving out. And while you continue to notice sensations, recommit, hips heavy, legs heavy, feel the crown of the head float up again. Is there more space to liberate? Now go ahead and take 3 conscious deep breaths. So a little bit deeper than you've been breathing. A long inhale, a full exhale. And then after you've taken 3 breaths, go ahead and open your eyes. Let the visual field come back in. I'm Erica, as you likely know at this point. So welcome to week 5 of the first section of our book club, focusing on gossip today. And a few logistics before we get started. Make sure your notifications are silenced. Let's give a big welcome to George and Beth, who are driving today. Can you guys say hi?
Hello.
Hi, everybody.
To East Coast and West Coast. We've got the holding the whole country and beyond. So course page, we've still got all of the information on the course page. All of the videos are up from the past 4 weeks. This video will be up within 24 hours. Homework, resources, all that good stuff is still there for you guys. The date that it will be taken down is listed. You can find that on the course page. It'll be up for a few more months. I don't know the exact date, but I do know it's up on the course page. That's a common question that we get. We're on video. Smile, be adorable, and just be aware that if you volunteer to speak, that it's being recorded for the class. And I can't think of one more practical logistical thing that needs to be said. So let Jim and Diana will take us away.
Hey y'all. Erica, didn't Jim wear that shirt 3 times in a row this week?
I hope so.
Yeah, and I love it every time. And why do you think I wear this one? I mean, come on.
When I was gossiping.
Oh. Okay, so you guys, if you really know me, you know I'm really dense and gullible. As Diana likes to say, I'm the stupidest smart person she knows. Yeah, I'll get it next time.
All right, so we're gonna have you all jump into breakout rooms in just a moment. But before that, I'd love to hear if there's anything in particular you want to talk about or explore related to this chapter and this commitment around gossip. So if you would put into the chat anything in particular, and be selfish, if this is just all about you and you getting your needs met, what would you like more understanding of, practice with, clarity about? That would be helpful to us. And if you are, and is there any particular part, so I hear the clearing model, is there anything in particular you want to know also would be helpful? Thank you all. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, those are great.
Okay. So let's have you check in with a couple of other folks. We're going to give each of you a few minutes here to discuss. It's been 2 weeks since we were all together. So what have you been learning? And let's go ahead and have all 4 commitments so far that you've been exploring. Sharing with the group, what are you learning? Anything that's changing for you as you've been practicing? Give everybody a chance to check in with a couple other folks. We'll have person with the longest hair. You'll start this time. And George and or Beth will let you know when to switch to the next person. So please be honoring of the request to switch so everybody gets equal time. All right, so go ahead and put you over in breakout rooms and see you in a little while.
All right. Before we jump into the new content of this week, does anybody have anything particular they want to share about what they've been learning or growing with, or a question or anything just in general before we dive into the clearing model and playing with gossip and things like that? Just from what you just did in your breakout room, anything anybody wants to express to be heard?
Anybody can unmute themselves if they have a comment.
Perfect. Thanks, Beth.
I can ask a question, and this may be an inappropriate question for what you just asked, but Garrett here, if if you're trying to find me, I have struggled, and I shared in the breakout room with, for example, with somebody who has no concept of the 15 commitments, i.e., my wife, who might, the neighborhood rumor mill gets going and the whole 9 yards, and how to break that habit, right? I can't escape. I've gotten pretty good at saying I have no interest in exploring how other people live their lives because it just does not affect me in the slightest. But what's a possible approach there to help? Because for instance, my wife calls this, don't use your psychobabble on me. I don't want anything to do with this.
Yeah, we're going to get into this, I think, a little bit.
Okay.
This is specifically speaking about gossip, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I might have gotten ahead of the game there. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, I like your question a lot. I want to cover that in a little bit here with gossip.
Great.
But you also are raising a deeper issue, which we talk about all the time, which is, one of the keys to one of the creations of drama in relationships is that we're not aligned with what it is we're up to in life. We're not playing the same game. So again, I don't know your wife and I don't know you.
Sure.
But long term, if my intimate partner continues to say to me about my commitment to whatever you want to call it, consciousness, waking up, being genuinely authentic, that's just a bunch of psychobabble. That's probably not a good long-term prognosis for the relationship. I just want to be direct.
Yeah, sure.
Not that she's wrong. That'd be perfectly okay. She could say, I just think all that touchy-feely stuff is utter bullshit and a complete waste of time. Great, got it. There are a jillion people who think like you think. And we might not be playing the same game. I'm playing basketball and you're playing lacrosse. Well, that's going to lead to drama and conflict over and over again, whether we're talking about gossip or money or sex or kids or how we want to relate to our parents. It'll just be recycled because you're playing a different game. Now, again, I'm not addressing you specifically, but I am saying, we say all the time, as you start to explore this stuff, understand that this is a way to play the game of life. It's not the right way, it's just a way. But if you're playing this way and people that you work with intimately on your team at work aren't playing this way, it's going to create ongoing disconnection. So that's why we say a lot and have a lot to say about what do you do to get aligned commitments. Because until your commitments are aligned, drama will keep coming back around.
Great. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else want to express anything? Otherwise, we'll jump into commitment number 5. All right.
Okay, shall I read it, Jim?
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right. So from above the line, I commit to ending gossip, talking directly to people with whom I have a concern, and encouraging others to talk directly to people with whom they have an issue or concern. Versus when I'm below the line, I commit to saying things about people that I would not or will not say to them. I commit to talking about people in ways I wouldn't if they were in the room. I commit to listening to others when they gossip.
Okay. So a couple of pieces to put in place, and then we'll start dealing with the questions you're putting up here. One, it's really important to come up with a good definition of gossip, which we do in the chapter. We'll just touch on that. And also why people gossip. In other words, if you don't make it bad, what are the payoffs of gossiping? And we're going to play a little YouTube clip here in a second, because the other day I was listening to Sapiens by Harari, which I'm sure many of you have read. And, you know, he's a renowned intellectual and historian. And I was struck by his comments about gossip and our development and evolution as sapiens. So let's play that, George, if you would. It's about a minute long or so. So let's just play that. This is from one of the leading intellectuals in the world, and then we'll integrate that into how we're talking about this subject.
Homo sapiens is a social animal. In order to stay alive and to raise children, we need to know who in our society hates whom, who is sleeping with whom, who is honest, and who is a cheat. Other apes cannot gossip, which is why they find it quite hard to live in large bands. The unique sapiens language enabled our species to gossip for hours on end, and that meant that we could develop much tighter and more sophisticated systems of cooperation. Our language did not evolve in order to do math or philosophy. It evolved so that we could gossip. Even today, the vast majority of human communication is gossip. Our emails, phone calls, and newspapers contains mostly chit-chat. It's part of the glue that holds our society together.
Now, in just a minute, we'll define how we view gossip, which I think is different than the way he's defining gossip. But I like that because, you know, we say all the time that being below the line is natural and normal. And it's part of how we try to survive. When we experience threat, we go below the line. And so if you just go through the first 5 commitments, blame happens when we're below the line and we're in a threatened state and we want to survive. Commitment number 1. Wanting to be right happens when we're below the line and we want to survive. Commitment number 2. Repression, suppression, and unfriendly expression of emotions occur when we're below the line. Commitment number 3. We withhold and we stop listening when we're in a threatened state below the line. Commitment number 4. And Harari's making the great point that the reason we gossiped was in order to stay safe, to be able to band together in larger and larger groups so that we could communicate to keep ourselves safe. I love when he says we didn't develop language to do mathematics. We did it so that we could gossip. And again, I think he's got a slightly different definition than we do. But I say all that to say, like, you know, Garrett, when you start talking to your wife about neighborhood gossip, you have to understand that what she, if she participates, and everybody in the neighborhood is doing is natural and normal. They are trying to establish survival patterns, safety patterns, which includes pecking orders. Who's who? Who do I need to watch out for? Who can I trust? Who can't I trust? So, you know, you go to a book club with a conscious leadership group on the 15 commitments, and you come out of it and you say, you know, gossip is actually a very unenlightened way to live, and everybody ought to stop gossiping. You got to understand, you are going against, you know, millennia of evolutionary patterning. Everybody get that? This is not a simple thing to stop, especially when we get scared and reactive and go into survival. Then we are going to gossip in order to stabilize ourselves and our ego identity so that we feel safe. So it's actually a huge thing to say, I commit to end gossip. You're the oddball in the world if you're doing that. They're not odd for gossiping in the neighborhood. They're normal. You're the weirdo from an evolutionary standpoint. Let alone, so many of the questions in the chat were, okay, I get it that maybe I could stop gossiping, but how in the world do I invite other people to stop gossiping? How do I gently move away from the conversation? That's a really good question, because you're asking them to do something, or you're going to interact with them in a way that's totally counterintuitive. That makes sense? By the way, we think that living the way we're talking, when we talk about living above the line, is radical. It's a radically different way to live in the world. Gossip is one of the foremost examples of that. So just everybody take a breath to that and relax. This is a big idea that I'm not going to talk about you. I'm going to talk to you. Whoa. Okay, so let's just frame this.
Yeah, and also there's so many payoffs to gossip. I used to just love to gossip in high school. It was one of I'm sure it was one of the biggest gossips, and I got so many payoffs. What payoffs do you get from gossiping? If you just think about it for a minute. I mean, one of my favorites, it was so entertaining, right? I mean, like, I got a story to tell that you're going to want to listen to, and we're going to all be entertained by it. Why else do you gossip? Controlling the narrative. That's a great one. Yeah, feel free to put those in the chats. Getting to feel right. Oh God, I am not doing that terrible behavior that person's doing. I'm better than. I get to bond. If you agree with me that person is a problem and we get to gossip together, we create a connection over here. That's a big payoff. Gossiping, somebody said they get to vent. I don't have to feel my authentic feelings. I get to vent and stay away from my feelings. A lot of people go to their therapist to gossip every week. Let me just go vent and tell you about all these problems I've got with the people I'm working and living with, and I get to feel better, and I don't have to go address the core stuff underneath that I don't want to be with. Yeah, I don't have to look inside of me. Anybody else have any other examples that you want to share? When I X out a quality in myself, let's say I X out being sexy, then when someone shows up at a party and they're behaving in a way that's sexy, I get scared because I X that out in myself, and now I'm Xing it out over in that person, and I'm going to go gossip and say, can you believe they're being so sexy like that? That's not very appropriate here. And I'm really talking about myself and my relationship to sexy. But rather than holding up the mirror and looking at this part of myself that's unowned or unloved, I go and gossip so I can stay away from that deeper exploration.
So you can see that just by what's being put in the chat and what Diana's saying, if we were sitting and having a cup of tea with you one-on-one and beginning to ask you, are you willing? And we were to say, are you willing to end gossip? I don't like it when people answer that quickly or cavalierly. You're going to put some things at risk if you choose to end gossip. And unless you feel the tension, there's going to be some losses in your life if you choose to end gossip, just to you personally and in some of your important relationships. Now, obviously, we think there's some real upsides. So there's some trade-offs, but we want you to really feel the trade-offs of letting go of living your life in a gossip mill.
Right, because to your point, Jim, I mean, I've practiced ending gossip by listening to it many times, and I'm still no less nervous every time I say, hey, I'm not interested in having this conversation unless we're going to go talk directly to that person. I really hear you've got some upset. I'd love to support you in how you want to go speak directly to them, I'm happy to do that. I mean, I still get nervous every time. And there's still the threat of maybe they're not going to like me or want to be around me or talk to me anymore.
I think that's really important when people are asking the question. It's a legitimate question. How do I kindly end gossip when it's coming towards me? Or give me some tips on some things to say. By the way, those are perfectly legitimate questions. But before we give you anything around that, you have to face that regardless of how you say it, you could very likely be misunderstood. Diana, who do you think you are? I mean, geez, get off your high horse. I was just telling you, I didn't like the dress she wore. What's the big deal? Just, you got to be willing to be misunderstood. You've got to be willing to be criticized. Because I guarantee you, no matter how kindly you say it, you're still changing the game. And that produces usually a little bit of backwash in life. Okay. All right. So just to be clear, let's review. We define gossip 3 ways. 1, gossip is saying something about you that I haven't said to you. Right. So I'm saying something to Diana about Mel that I haven't said to Mel. That's the first general place to look. Second, I'm saying something about you in a way that I haven't said it to you. In other words, I might say the same thing, but there's a tone, an edge, an attitude that doesn't come up when I say it to you. So the biggest circle is I've said stuff that I haven't said to you. The second is I've said it in a way that I haven't said it to you. That's a big one. And third, and this is really the key, I'm saying it in a way that makes me better than and you less than. If you listen to gossip, if you just watch gossip on social media or whatever, what's true about all gossip is that the gossiper gets to be better than, gets to be superior, above. So that's the energy of it. And again, that's tied in to a sense of threat to the ego identity. If I'm feeling fearful or insecure, then one of the things I want to do to feel better, to feel more secure, is feel better than. So when I gossip, I'm going to feel better than, and I'm going to get temporary relief from the discomfort that I'm feeling inside of me. So those are the 3 ways that we define gossip. When people say, well, what is gossip? Well, are you saying stuff you haven't said directly? Are you saying it in a way you haven't said it? Or are you saying it in any way that you get to feel better than?
So let's just say Mel's on this call, Mel's on my team. And I say to Mel, I was a little surprised you made that decision. And then I go away and I say to Jim, I was totally surprised he made that decision. And I go, I told Mel that too.
Yeah.
I mean, I said that to him, but I didn't say it the way I'm saying it now.
Yeah, good example. All right, so we covered why we gossip historically, evolutionarily. We've covered kind of the payoffs for gossip, and now we've covered what gossip is. Are there any questions about any of that? Because then we're going to shift over to, well, if I'm not gossiping, what am I doing instead of gossiping? And that's going to be clearing. But before we go there, which is where we want to spend most of our time today, any questions about gossip? And we'll get to how do you deal with somebody who's gossiping, but just getting the category set first.
Somebody did ask, is it gossip if I'm talking to my coach, my therapist, my mentor, even my colleague, if I'm wanting support on how to go directly to them? So how do we know the difference there?
Well, it's so great what you just said. I'm getting support that's going to lead to me going directly to them. If I go talk to my coach, my therapist, my rabbi week after week, and I never go to them, to the person, then I'm just venting. And by the way, venting feels good. It's a temporary relief. all week long, I've gotten triggered by my relationship with this person. Now I get to go talk to my coach, therapist, friend, whatever, have another glass of wine, and I let the steam off. Psst. So I go home, I feel a little bit better, but then I get back engaged with the person throughout the week. Psst. That's gossip. If I'm going to Diana and I say, hey, Diana, I plan to go talk to Erica, this week about such and such an issue. I just want you to hear me and just help me discern if I got some blind spots here. Can you help me frame this? I'm having a difficult time differentiating what's a story and what's a fact. So I just like some support from you so that I can get clear and go have a conversation with Erica. Happy to loop back with you, by the way, afterwards and tell you how the conversation went.
Is it gossip if I'm talking about Trump and a bunch of the political people out there? Is that if I don't know these people, is that gossip?
Well, just check and see. Do you feel better than?
Yeah. Damn straight I do. I am not like those people.
So just start there, and we'll get in the clearing model. Down to the very last step of the clearing model is what we call eating your projections. And we've written about this in our newsletter. In fact, I think we just did in the one that came out yesterday or the day before. If you're talking about Trump and you happen to be negative on Trump and you think you're better than, and you're talking about why your way of seeing the world is superior and what a cosmic whatever he is, you're feeling better than. But the first place we go is, are you willing to see that he is just a screen onto which you're projecting parts of yourself that you have yet to love and integrate? Well, then your relationship with the president, whether you know him personally or not, is an invitation for you to own and eat your projections. He's actually giving you a wonderful gift every day when you get angry, because he's being a screen onto which you're projecting unfinished parts of yourself. Go do your own work before you try to fix the president or Nancy Pelosi or whatever your particular bias is. This is huge. By the way, this is one of the values of gossip. Let's say I start gossiping to Diana about Trump. And, she's an ally for me. She says, Jim, that's fantastic. I noticed that, you're calling Trump a liar and a racist again. Have you done the work around seeing the places in your life where you're not telling the truth? Would you be willing to explore those with me right now? Just find any place in your life where you're not telling the truth, including not telling the truth to yourself, to your children, to your wife, to your friends, any place. Because we can't really right now do anything about what the president's doing, but we can do a whole lot about our relationship to lying. And by the way, would you be willing to re-examine any place where you have some racism running in your life? So now we're using gossip as an invitation to come back to self-awareness and personal transformation. This is a big idea. I think this is a radical idea. If we all operated this way, gang, we'd be living in a very different world.
I love somebody. It goes, but what if we gossip about competitors? Because it's a way we team build and gets us motivated to go, if we cut them down and go get them.
There's no doubt that one of the great benefits of gossiping is bonding. We've already established that, right? When we gossip, we get to be connected with those who share our view. Now, the deal is we as humans are wired for bonding. So as a team, if your primary motivation is to be against your competitors and to bond around why you're better than them, first thing I'd say is you make total sense. The next thing I would suggest, and we don't have time to go into this now, but I would want to explore higher levels of bonding. In addition to bonding around a common enemy, which is a historic thing, There are ways to bond around a common vision. There are ways to bond around, there are higher levels of bonding. And if I came in to lead a team that had done a lot of bonding around gossip and a common enemy, first of all, I'd celebrate that. I wouldn't criticize. So that's great. But I would gently, over time, introduce higher states of collaboration, collegiality, and bonding that don't leave a toxic residue. Because bonding around a common enemy and bonding around gossip around your competitors leaves a toxic residue. So I'd want to up the game we're playing around bonding as a team. Not criticizing that we don't bond doing that way. Of course you do. Great. We're just saying there you can play a even more impactful game.
Okay, so let's have you all think of someone in your life for whom you've been gossiping. You've been gossiping about this person. And you're upset about them. We'd like everybody to think of somebody and that you would be willing to explore the idea of going directly to them. Now, maybe you won't actually do that, but for the sake of our training today, you're going to pick somebody that you're going to practice doing a clearing with. So who's somebody you're upset with, probably been talking about them to somebody else that you're going to practice, at least for today, being direct with using this clearing model. Come up with that person. And we're going to have you use pen and paper here, or if you prefer, you could type it in. And you're going to we're going to walk you through the clearing model and have you fill in each section. So everybody have a person that you can think of, somebody that you can practice clearing with? Anybody have a question about that? So George just put the clearing model in the chat for those of you who want to take a look at that. It's also in the book. So we're going to start out with, if you were going to go clear with somebody, if you were really going to do this, the first thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to check and see, am I willing to be above the line now around my relation, around this issue with this person? This is important. Would I be willing to end blame? No more blaming, no blaming them, no blaming me. Would I be willing to end blame? And would I be willing to let go of being right? I'm right, you shouldn't have done that thing. I'm right, you should have done this thing. Would I be willing to let go of being right about that? And then, would I be willing to stand for creating a win for all? Let me learn about what's a win for them, what's a win for me, and how would we create that? So if I can't check those boxes, I'm not going to be available for a clearing. So see if you can think of someone for whom you'd be willing to let go of being right and end blame and go have practice having a direct conversation.
Just to be clear, to relax your system, we're not saying that you're agreeing to go have a conversation. You're actually just going to practice today with somebody else. That's so right. Don't feel like you're having to take this on and go do it. That's not there yet.
Yep. And Olivia, you said you don't see the model. It should be there, right there in the chat to click on. Maybe we can.
George, can you just post the link to the website as well? I mean, PDFs might not show up for everybody in their chats for some reason.
Great. Okay, so here we go. First step. What are the actual facts around this issue? Now remember, a fact is something that the camera records, right? The camera records that Jim is wearing something on his face, something over his nose, around his eyes. That's what the camera records. Likely a pair of glasses, looks like a pair of glasses to me, right? That's a fact. The camera records that. So what did the camera record? The camera records things but the camera doesn't record adjectives or adverbs or comparisons. Like I actually don't know what his glasses are made out of. That would be a story. So you're going to put some attention on what are the facts related to this issue. You said some words. You drove the kids to school and you left the house and the clock said 8:15. You said you were going to get me the report by 5 p.m. yesterday. I don't have the report yet. That's what the camera records. So you're just looking for some of the basic facts so we can orient to what is this issue about?
If you're wondering if it's a, I was going to say, if you're wondering if it's a fact or not, it's not a fact.
Yeah.
Facts have no interpretation, no judgments, no opinions. They're just facts. Literally,
Color.
Video camera.
Color is a story. It's not a fact. What color is my hair? You'll have your different subjective opinions. Measurements, my hair is long or medium. That's a story. That's not a fact. Even you're late is a story. The clock said 8:15 is a fact. Story, you were late to take the kids to school. You spoke loudly or rudely. Those are all those adjectives, adverbs we're talking about. Okay, now, once you've got your facts, what are the stories that you're making up? What stories do you have? You're not responsible, a responsible parent getting the kids to school on time. A story I have is I can't count on you to get your reports to me when you say you will. I can't count on you to keep your agreements. Story is you're irresponsible, you're lazy, you don't value my time. What stories do you make up about those facts? Yeah, that's great. Josh says there are 5 dishes in the sink and there are ants on them. Those are the facts. The stories are that's gross, you're dirty, and I pay rent here too. You're disrespectful. Great. Okay, now, what feelings are here as you think about these stories you have, as you're thinking about this scene, what feelings do you have? And we recommend sticking to the 5 core feelings. Scared. I'm scared. I feel scared when I hear that you didn't take the kids to school at the time we had agreed upon. Anger. I feel angry when you don't get the reports to me when you said. Sad. Excited, joyful. Sexual creative energy. Those all could be there. So what feelings are here? And see if you can find if there are any feelings underneath your feelings. Lots of times you might say, yeah, I'm angry. Well, what's underneath anger? Oh, I'm scared.
You also might notice there are feelings that don't seem to be related in your mind to your facts or your stories. So you're also really saying, I feel angry. Diana's wondering if she agrees with that or not.
No, I was just thinking of an example where I could think of, because to your point, sometimes it's like I walked in the room with my new dress on. That's a fact. Another fact is you didn't make a comment, right? And then I might have some feeling like that doesn't even make sense of why was I feeling that when that happened? And so to your point, like fear,
for example.
Yeah, I might have felt scared. And like, why scared? But that's just what's here. It doesn't have to make sense. And then the next step is, what do you want? Now, basically, this is a practice of intimacy, which means, hey, I just want you to know me. Around this issue, this is what I really want. I really want you to keep your agreements with me.
There's a question about to clarify, emotions are a story. Which is not what we're saying. Yes and no, right?
Can be, but
Actually, I think they are.
yes.
We're separating the story of emotion into its own category.
Yeah, well, just to be clear, emotions are a set of sensations in and on the body.
Yes.
I could have a set of sensations in and on the body, and I say, I feel sad. That's actually an interpretation of a set of sensations. And this is why sometimes if people don't have a lot of emotional intelligence, they could say, I feel scared, and what they actually feel is sad, but they just don't know enough yet. So that's okay. So emotions are actually an interpretation.
So if you'd like to, you could just say, when you didn't keep the agreement, I noticed there was a swirling in my belly, and you can be more unarguable. So then this next step of what do I really want? It's just, hey, I want you to know me. What I really want is I want you to keep your agreements with me. Now, it doesn't mean I'm entitled to that. It doesn't mean I'm going to get that. It doesn't mean you have to agree to that. It just means I just want you to know me. This is what I really want around this issue. Then those are the basics there of just, I want, here we go, facts, stories, feelings. What do I want? Now we're going to come into you really taking responsibility, because the idea is the reason I created this in the first place, this whole issue, is because I created a disconnect. There's a disconnect between me and you. And let's say this piece of paper represents that disconnect. I did this. I'm the source of the disconnect. I often want to make it about you, but the truth is I did this. So this next question is, how did I put this disconnect in place between you and me? How did I do that? So I've been withholding from you for months around broken agreements. And I have been withdrawing and therefore creating this disconnect. I've been judging you and judging you because I haven't wanted to look at my own parts. And so I've been putting this in place. How have you been creating the disconnect? The moment I heard that you were going to not be at work tomorrow, I immediately felt anger, and I just dismissed you and decided you're somebody I don't really trust or care about, and I pulled away and I did this. So that's you taking responsibility for the disconnect. And then the last part of this is where all the gold is, in my opinion. The reason I created this disconnect is because you represent something that I either don't own about myself. I'm not like that. I'm always keeping my agreements. Or, yeah, I know I'm like that too, but I hate that about me. I can't stand that about me, and I can't stand it about you. So the reason I created disconnect is because you represent something that's either unowned or unloved over here in me. That's always the case. So the whole part here is we call it eating the projection. The part of me I see in you that I have an aversion to, and that aversion means like I want to get away from it. And it's the part of me I see in you that I have an aversion to is not keeping agreements. And then you're going to go find the other part. The part of me I see in you that I have an attraction to, meaning I like that. I want to get closer to that, is your free-spiritedness. I'm so tight about things. I don't let myself be as free. Sometimes the aversion and the attraction is exactly the same thing. So you're going to take a look at what's the aversion and attraction. And we know it's kind of a mouthful, the way we've written it, but we really, those words matter in the way that we say them. The part of me, it's me that I see in you.
I just want to grab a thread while you're doing that. Matt McCall asked earlier, vis-a-vis Trump, what if we just have different values? You know, he says, so, you know, you believe in racial equality and disapprove of hate and divisiveness. What if we just have different values? Well, here's what we tell you is, if it's just different values, you won't be triggered by the other person. In order to be triggered around values, you have to think your values are right and theirs are wrong. That's the first place. So the more triggered, in other words, if you just wear a shirt that has green and red in it, and I, you know, don't like green and red, I like, you know, blue and yellow, I'm not going to be triggered. I just say, oh, green and red shirt, not my preference. When I go to stores, I don't buy green and red. I buy blue and yellow. In other words, I hold it like this. You make sense to me that you might like green and red. Have at it. So, but if I go green and red, how the hell could you buy a green and red shirt? Now my preference or my value has become a stance in righteousness. And now I'm better than you because my values are better than you. That's the beginning of where you could start to eat your projections. The other thing is, if you really do this work that we're talking about, you will have deep and profound compassion for people who live in the world differently than you. You won't have criticism. You'll have compassion. Just check out the Dalai Lama. He doesn't agree with how China is operating in the world, but he has compassion. By the way, that doesn't mean that he doesn't have anger. The Dalai Lama gets angry. But there's a difference between anger from above the line and below the line. So I just want to clarify here. You can have different values, but you're not triggered and your heart is open. When your heart closes and you get triggered, it's something about you. That's when you can eat your projection.
And sometimes this is subtle. So let's say I'm sitting in a meeting with my colleagues and someone's leading the meeting, and I have the thought that the meeting could be more well organized. So I'm going to check and see, and I want to give them some feedback. I want to check and see, am I coming from, I'm right that the meeting should be more organized. I'm right, you're not as organized as you should be. And there's righteousness as Jim was describing. And I can feel some better than less than. If I go, well, I prefer meetings to be more organized. And I prefer to be more effective, have more effective meetings. And I think if we had a more organized script, that would matter. So I'm going to give you that feedback, but I'm not righteous. Then I'm just going to share feedback in the practice of candor from Commitment 4. But if I notice there's a better than or a rightness, then I'm going to recognize I got a little bit of a going on that I've created, and then I'm going to shift to the clearing model.
Yeah. And I want to point out here that, especially because Jim brought in compassion, this will never end, in my opinion and experience. You will have judgments. You will create disconnection, as do I, as do all of us. And all it is a call to practice. And that's what the clearing model is there to do, is to first know yourself and then to allow yourself to be known. So it's always, the mind is always going to look for an opportunity. But what about this really evil, horrible person? And as soon as you do the work there's gonna be something else. It's the job of your mind. And you can thank it, say, thanks for giving me my next practice. That's really all it is. But every exception is going to be that. There's not going to be some exception that's going to suddenly blow it all away.
All right, let's practice.
Yep. Who would like to practice your clearing with Jim? Jim's going to play the role of whoever it is that you want to clear with. I'll coach you, and we'll all get to learn from the process.
So Jen Britton jumped right in.
Okay, Jen. Jen, can you unmute yourself and we'll hear who is this person?
Wow, my heart's pounding already.
Perfect.
It's my son.
Okay. Okay. So Jen, what we'd like you to do is Jim will be your son, and each segment you're going to say first the facts, then you're going to give Jim as your son the opportunity to hear back and listen and reflect back what he heard. Okay. So he's going to play the role. Jim's going to show you what the version of the listener looks like. And then once he's reflecting back, you'll check and see if he's got it. And then you'll go to the next segment and we'll just go segment by segment down.
Okay.
All right. So you'll just, usually you start with something like, hey, honey, son,
Yeah.
my relationship really matters to you. You know, I want to clear something up with you. Are you available?
Yeah. Great. Okay. So Liam, I've got something that's been on my mind for quite a while, and I really want to clear it with you. And our relationship, as you know, is really important to us, to me. So yeah, so I want you to know the other day when we were talking and I asked you how you were doing with your uptick in your manicness, that
Hold on a minute. I'm going to pause. Okay. So I want you to really stick to the script, and you're going to say, the facts are, okay, right? Now, when you start using words like manic, that's a story.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Perfect.
So so you're going to say the other day, so the facts are that the other day something happened. What were the facts?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. So the facts are the other day, I asked you the question of how.
You don't have to get into the details of the words.
Okay.
Because the moment you actually say, I said this, that's arguable. That's a story.
Okay.
Because so you just say, I asked something about how you were.
Okay.
Okay.
The other day I asked something about how you were. And you said you didn't want to talk about it. And you got quiet.
Okay. Quiet's a story.
Oh, and you stopped talking?
Uh-huh.
That's pretty much it.
So what I hear you saying is the other day you asked me a question. And I said I didn't want to talk about it. And then I stopped talking. Is that right?
Yes.
Is there more?
And what he means is there any more facts that are important to be discussed, in your opinion?
Hang on. I don't think so. I think it's this. Okay. That's right on the money.
Okay, great. Now you go to your stories.
Oh, gosh.
And say, the stories I make up are.
The stories I make up are numerous. The stories I make up are that you are experiencing an uptick in your mania, that you're in a manic phase. I also make up that you are afraid. I make up that you're ashamed. I make up that you don't.
So Jim is putting up a finger. And what that means is, and you'll want to train your people to be able to say, if I'm giving you too many things to remember, put your finger up.
Oh, cool.
So Jim doesn't want to have to try to sit and remember everything. So he's going to give you back what he first hears.
Okay.
Mom, what I hear you say, that you're making up the story that I'm experiencing an uptick in my mania, and that I'm afraid, and that I'm ashamed. Is that right?
Yes.
Is there more?
Yes. I make up that story that you don't trust me. And let's see. And, and that it's difficult for you to be with this.
So what I hear you saying is that you make up the story that I don't trust you and that it's difficult for me to be with this. Is that right?
Yes.
Is there
Yeah.
more?
Um,
And this is around any stories that you have.
oh gosh. Okay. Yeah, it's hard because it feels a little stilted, but
What do you mean stilted?
I'm not used to being this
Right.
attached, but that's fine. That's why I offered it.
We're putting a tight container around it. And
Sure,
at first it feels kind of mechanical,
Sure.
but we're doing it for a reason, which is, can we keep you in the
Right.
practice without going below the line and getting
Right.
back into my stories are facts?
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I make up another story that you're scared. And that, yeah, that you don't want to look into this situation any deeper, that you want to put it off.
You're making up the story that I'm scared and that I don't want to look into this situation any deeper, that I want to put it off.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Is there more?
Well, yes, I'm certainly concerned about that. It's hard to witness. And I want to know how to support you in these times.
So what I hear you saying is that you're concerned about this and it's hard to watch and that you want to know how to support me, any steps around how to support me. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, now and just for the sake of the practice, we're going to move on. You might have more stories, but we're going to go ahead and move you to the next step. So then you'd say, my feelings about this issue.
Oh, gosh. So my feelings about this issue are I'm sad and hurt, a little frustrated, and a little angry about being shut off.
Okay, so the being shut off would go back into the story category.
Oh, it sure would. Yeah. Thank you.
So we keep it to just the feelings. And then if you feel like you realized, oh, there's another story, you could go back up to stories and say, I have a story, you're shut off, but otherwise we just keep it here.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
What I hear you saying is that you're feeling sad and hurt and frustrated and angry. Is that right?
Yes.
Is there more?
That's a lot. That feels like a lot. Yeah. I think that's covers it. Yeah.
Okay, then you go to the next session. What I want is.
What I want is for you to trust me and feel safe with this issue with me. And of course, I want you to feel, comfortable talking about this with me.
So what I hear is you want me to trust you and you want me to feel safe with this issue with you. And you want me to feel comfortable talking to you about this issue. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Is there more?
Um, I want you to feel accepted wherever you show up with me, including this.
So what I hear is you want me to feel accepted wherever I show up with you, including this.
Yes, and of course loved. Yeah.
You want me to feel loved.
Mhm.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And is there more?
Um,
And for the sake of the practice, we're going to pause and have you keep going.
Okay.
But what I love that Jen role modeled here, I just want to capture, is she checked every time. She didn't just go, yeah, no, that's it. She dropped in. She felt into, this is a really important part of the clearing model, because sometimes you'll find there are things underneath that you couldn't see until this moment. So I want to check in here about our timing. So if you could say, Jen, in just one out breath, how did you create the disconnect with your son?
by withdrawing and withholding and sitting on this for like ever. I'm still sitting on it. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, big time. Mhm.
Right. And so then Jim would reflect that back if we were going to follow the model. We're going to be expeditious here, expeditious.
Sure.
So then we're going to have you eat the projection. The part of me I see in you, David, that I have an aversion to is what?
When I withhold how I feel from others, and when I withhold important information about my state of being.
So you see him withholding.
Mhm.
Part of me I see in you that I have an aversion to is my withholder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't love my withholder. I don't love that part of
Mm-mm.
me.
Mm-mm.
Right?
Mm-mm. No bueno.
Good. And then the part of me that I see in you that I have an attraction to is, as he's showing up the way he's showing up over there, what's something that you're attracted to there?
That's tough. That's hard. I'm not getting that. Anything random or
just what do you see? What do you value? What do you like over there that when he says, I don't want to talk?
Oh, that yeah, what I value is that you have boundaries.
Yeah. Part of me that I see in you that I'm attracted to is your boundaries.
Your boundaries. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And so then Jim, if he were playing his role, would reflect that back, and then he would just check, do you feel clear? Have you said everything you need to say, felt everything you need to felt? And the key thing is, has this dropped away? Back in connection again.
Yeah. Well, when you get to those last two parts about the disconnect you created yourself and the projection that you eat, it's much lighter in this place.
Yeah. And so you're going to just check, have I created connection again? Are we back in connection? Because I'm the one that creates the connection. It's about me.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you for role modeling.
For sure. Thank you both.
Yeah.
You're so welcome. I wish we had time. I'd tell you what I feel as your son.
I have a good imagination.
All right. I think, I feel, how do we want to go with this? I do want to see if there are any questions here, anything for you all, because the clearing model is such a sophisticated tool. Anything you particularly want to know here? Feel free to just unmute yourself and ask the question.
I wonder.
Hello, it's Howard here.
Yes.
My question is, Jen's wants were all wants for her son.
Yes.
When I went through this process, the wants were for me. Is that okay as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And if you really listen, you'll see that those wants are for her. Yeah, right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, Rachel.
Yeah. So Diana's role as the moderator and the coach felt really important here. And I'm just wondering, as you start practicing this with people, do you recommend having a third party kind of holding the referee to help if you're really, something's really a story, or is it possible for, I imagine with practice, it would be possible for two people to get it.
Yeah, with practice, you can do it, but always, if there's an option for a third person to sit, we highly recommend that. Yeah, and especially like sometimes there'll be clearings in an organization, and so they might have somebody from HR who sits and helps support the conversation by making sure people stick to the script.
Yeah, I just have struggled, sometimes trying to do it with people. It's like, well, okay, actually that's a story, but then, then we created we're just still in drama together sometimes.
Yes.
So if I'm too much the police.
Yes, yes. And that's where, yes. So having a mentor, also making sure people have watched the video, looked at the handout so they really understand as best they can the distinctions.
Diana?
Yes.
Yeah. So see, to me, I mean, this is great if you can practice with people who have gone through it, but it's like, okay, I tried doing this with my husband. Didn't go well at all. And he kept saying, you're beating me up. Because I'm never doing this right. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to get get the sharing and so it's really hard if you're not in that alignment.
That's right. That's an alignment piece.
And if they don't want to, I'd love for my husband to go through this so that we could have it as, the tools for us to use together.
Mm-hmm.
But if I've sort of suggested it, he started the book, but you can't make someone do something, and I don't want to guilt him, and I don't want to shame him, and so.
How could you be an irresistible invitation for him to want to explore this?
Oh, goodness. Sex, I don't know.
Just to play around with just to get curious about that. How could I be an irresistible invitation for you to want to come and explore this idea of being in conscious relationship together?
And you can remember what drew you to this work. And it's not going to be the exact same tactic or draw for him, because we're all attracted by different things, but there's a key for you and what drew you to the work. And I bet it had something to do with seeing other people who are practicing and embodying it. So what Diana's asking you is to be that particular invitation in your relationship.
Also remember, when I'm using this with somebody who doesn't know this very well, I say, hey, look, I just want to let you know I've created a disconnection with you. It has nothing to do with you. Although I think sometimes it does. And I want you to do my work, because this being close to you matters to me so much.
Yes.
So honey, could you sit here and play this role? And you might get a little triggered along the way because you might think this is about you. And if you do get triggered, you can raise your hand and say, hey, pause, I'm getting triggered. Let me take some breaths and come back to presence. And then he can do this. Now, here's the other thing. You don't have to clear directly with your husband to clear with your husband. Because again, it's not about him. So you could just go pick one, somebody from the group and say, anybody want to practice with me? Send me your email and be my husband, and I'll do the clearing, because I'll get my learnings. I'll create the connection again. And he didn't need to be a part of this at all.
Right. No, and I think that would help, because for me, and in our earlier little breakout group, I was saying, I mean, see, I get triggered and then I'm not communicating in my best way. And then he's getting triggered. And then sometimes for me too, I don't know what I'm feeling right then in that very moment. It takes me a little time to process what I'm feeling and what the story I'm creating and be able to express it.
Yeah.
So that would help to practice.
Very much so. The other thing is, if somebody goes, this isn't feeling friendly for me, it still feels like you're really critical, I'm going to stop and go, hold on a minute. Maybe I am still below the line here.
Yeah.
I'm actually not available to clear. You're right.
Right.
I am still wanting to be right. Let me stop this process because it's not about clearing. Now, this is about me just revealing I'm on the drama triangle.
Yes.
And then going on the drama triangle and then doing your practice. My husband should.
Right. But I mean, we have that language and those words of, oh, I'm getting triggered or he's getting, but I mean, most people don't use words like, I mean, a lot of people, or the people I've been in relationship with. So
Jim said, this is radical. This is, very few people are doing this.
Yeah. So I think your question is really good. And I think by me owning more of it and me just getting better at it and me not getting triggered and it becoming more of an invitation for us to develop more closeness, but it has to be kind of in a gentle way for these other people. Because I mean, I have the same, like with a son, and it's, it's like, how do you change communication patterns that you've had for 30 years?
Right. Not overnight.
Yeah.
Part of being an invitation is practicing enough so that people notice a difference. Honey, what are you doing? It's really lovely. I want to can I learn more? So practice. So highly recommend, and this might be a group that you want to practice with. Also, we have our next module 2 of the 15 commitments that we'll be doing starting in January. We'd love to see you all back, come practice with us. And George has put up a link there for you all if you want to click on that to keep on rolling with us. And I do recommend get practice partners. So you might put your name out, Carol, and say, anybody want to practice with me between now and then? I'd love to meet once a week and let's practice.
Right. And in that next piece, we'll be doing integrity as one of the commitments. And I'm noticing that it's come up a lot today. There is not a coincidence to the order. There's a method to the 15. So around alignment and relationship and where wholeness and integration comes from. So more of that will be coming too as we move forward.
Anything else you want to say, Jim?
I'm still over there with Carol. Oh, golly. Okay. Carol, can you feel that you want your husband to change?
Oh, I do.
So as long as you're wanting him to change, you're below the line.
You're right.
Clearing model as just a consciousness jujitsu to try to get him to change. It's just your latest version of how to get him to change. Instead of dealing with yourself, you're still over there in his business.
Yeah.
So he says you're just being critical of me. He's right. You should say, oh, sweetheart, that's so true.
It is. It's just never enough.
If I criticize you enough, you'll finally change. And then I can be happy because my happiness is completely dependent upon you changing.
Well, that's an exaggeration, but it's there.
It's there. I say that to say the clearing model is a capstone. Comes at commitment number 5 because it includes commitment number 1. You're stopping blaming and you're taking responsibility. You're letting go of being right and you're being curious. You're articulating your feelings. You're revealing and you're separating fact from story. That's why it's such a powerful tool. But many, many people use the clearing model from below the line to try to change other people. And when you do that, you're probably not going to find it to be a very satisfying experience for you or them.
Yes.
But I do think, Carol, when Jim says this about your happiness is based on whether he'll change, the one who wants to change them is believing I can't be happy unless you change. It's not an exaggeration. That is what's going on when we're saying to a partner, change, change, change.
Well, I'm not that tough on him, really. I mean, I'm just trying to us to have more dialogue.
Good.
You know,
I can't be as happy as I would like to be. I can't be as fulfilled as I would like to be unless you change so we can have more dialogue.
And is that right or wrong or below the line or above the line? Or
below the line because you're still outsourcing fulfillment to your husband.
Okay.
Commitment number 11. Stay with us. Stay with us.
I am.
You're still outsourcing your deep sense of well-being to somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's a formula for nonstop suffering and drama.
When in doubt, where am I? And 100% responsibility. If there's, where am I? Am I willing to take 100%? Simple.
There's a survey link here in the chat. You'll also get one in an email that's in your box. We'd really like feedback. We want to keep dialing in and making these book clubs more valuable for participants. So your feedback to help us learn and grow is greatly appreciated. So we've tried to make it as short as possible to not take up too much of your valuable time. And
I just want to remind you, I'm looking at some of the questions that are coming up. If you haven't, please go to our website. We have tons of material there to support you. And it's all organized based on commitments. So somebody asked earlier, could you review best practices and tools? We have sheets on best practices and tools for you to just go and grab. We've got meditations. We've got everything you could need to be supported. We really want you to be supported and not be dependent upon us being with you to be supported. So please go cannibalize the website. Take everything.
Also, I'm going to stick around for a little bit of an after party, and I don't know if you have any time, Jim, but I'll stick around to play with some more questions. And so we want to officially close and honor time for those of you and say thank you so much for being with us in this first 5 commitments. And for those of you who do want to stick around, we can answer some more questions. So thank you, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Okay. So if you're sticking around, you've got some more questions. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask for more support.
Well, I still haven't another question. Can you hear me? Obviously.
Yes.
Okay. So these people over here in the chat, they're saying, oh, you know, they're open to practicing and blah, blah, blah. How do you, I mean, to do this so quick that I'm not paying attention to what we're saying and I'm trying to get that in. How can we do that? How can we get contact information? You see what I'm saying?
You can scroll up through the chat right now and grab that contact information that people shared with the group.
And just do it that way.
Mm-hmm. And cut
Okay.
and paste them. Yep.
Okay. I do have another question. And that is, when you're talking about compassion, so you're willing to say, you know, my way is not right, and I don't want to be righteous here. But then you're saying, but you have compassion for them. But to me, having compassion, I guess maybe I don't really know what that means. To me, that comes across as sort of still viewing them as needing compassion. And I don't want to be looking at them as a victim or a needing help or needing to be fixed, or their viewpoint still is not right, like my viewpoint. So how do you have compassion for someone if you really feel your viewpoints are of equal value or equal?
I'll give you a simple, quick answer. We could write a book on this. Compassion simply means I understand your suffering. And to the degree that I can, I want to be supportive to you. Now, again, I do have a different worldview than the president. But when I look over there, I see suffering. I don't have somebody say, I don't have pity. I don't actually have sympathy. He just looks to me like he's suffering. Now, that isn't a big leap because I think all humans suffer.
Mm-hmm.
So based on how I'm architecting the world, I'm creating my own suffering. You don't have to think I'm wrong, and you don't have to think you're better than me. You can just go, God, looks like there's suffering over there. And so my heart is open to you. And the degree to which I could be of support to you to help your suffering be less than it is, I'm available to that. In my mind, that's what compassion is. Open-hearted understanding of the suffering of another with a willingness to be of service.
But is that not also a judgment? You are judging him that he's suffering.
I just want to jump in. You're never going to figure out compassion from your mind. It's just not going to happen. You do the practice, you pay all these calls to practice. I get triggered, I practice. And so you do these practices and you will notice compassion is there, just like you notice you've fallen asleep at night. You can't force yourself to sleep. You can't force compassion. You do the work and we're taking away obstacles to being with other people directly as they are. And so every trigger, every nail that we take out, ouch, there's just more space and it will surprise and delight you. So Jim can talk about compassion, but he's speaking from a place, and once it will come. It really will come. So you just focus on what's in the way, being really kind to yourself. Ouch, that hurts. Let me attend, let me untangle this. It's in the way of me connecting. And then you find, here it is. The mind will try to figure it out and the mind can't. It's great for other things.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Concerning the clearing model, I practiced, or my example was my mother. So basically the opposite. I don't have kids, so I can't relate directly to that. But I don't see myself staying above the line in such a conversation. And I ask myself, is this even necessary? Like, especially in such a relationship, I think you can handle each other below the line, or like what's like, should I practice until I think I can, or what would you suggest? Or just go for it, basically.
So what I hear is, I'm not yet above the line around my issue with my mother. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Great. So then what we'd have you do is we'd say, you can locate right now that you're below the line, yeah? Around this issue with your mom, you can feel it.
Yeah.
And have you let yourself get in the drama triangle, put the cards on the floor and really let it rip. Let yourself bitch, moan, and complain as much as you can about the issue. Have you ever created space for that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can do that.
Okay. And then you'd say, underneath all of this reactivity on the drama triangle, there's just someone who's scared. Can I be with and accept my scared self? Really accept yourself for being threatened. And then you're going to check and you're going to use the willingness questions to see, would I be willing to shift out of this threatened state in relationship to my mom to a state of trust? Maybe, maybe not. If no, that's perfectly fine. And 80% of the time, it's often no. So then you go, oh, I'm just committed right now to judging my mother and being disconnected in certain ways. That's all. And I do that because I'm scared. And you're just there's more you could learn. You could get if you wanted to hire a coach and you could explore more about what am I getting from that? And how is that familiar? And, there's all kinds of things in there. And if you are willing to shift, then you would find yourself available then to clear. But we recommend really taking the time to go through that process, because people often are so quick to use the clearing model and aren't really checking to see if they're above the line.
Yeah, I get it. So it's the clearing model. It's actually here to actually clear. It's not to create more drama.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You still got it.
And to your point, this tool gets weaponized more than most any of the other tools we have. There's a lot of people go, yeah, Jim, I'm going to clear with you about, that thing you did the other day. And I want to tell you, and I'm just going to use this to tell you how you did it wrong. And, I'll go through the projection. Yeah, the part of me I see in you is, and I don't mean any of it really.
Right. To really go in owning that I'm being vulnerable with you. I'm showing you my insides. It's so radical. Like Jim says, this is not how we were taught to be in the world.
When I do a clearing, that it's like I almost feel like my head blows up. It's like, oh my goodness, I hadn't seen this about me.
Like every time.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm going to skip on out. You can hang with people for a
Yeah.
while. I'll join the next.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Anybody else? Questions?
It's more of an observation than a question. What I've seen through each of these 5 chapters is that every time it comes back to me, it's an invitation to work on me. And whenever I'm unwilling to work on me, it's because I want to be right. And then when I look at, well, why is it that I want to be right? And that then reveals my fear. And what is it if I'm afraid of? And it's usually what my ego's after. My ego's after being right, being powerful, and being loved and admired. And then I can giggle and say, okay, I'm willing to work on this. But it's lovely. Every section has revealed itself as, oh, here's a lesson. This is where I can work on me. It's been really great. And I've been so blind to it for like the first 15 minutes, and then it reveals itself as we go through the process. So thank you so much for supporting me on this journey.
Oh, you're welcome. And thanks so much for sharing. And that's exactly it. That's exactly my experience, which is why I love this work so much. It's just all an invitation for me to know and love me.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your point, Howard, when I'm threatened, when I'm below the line, we really like using this idea that it's always the identity. It's always going to be a threat to security, control, or approval. So I like to look and see, where do what does it feel like is a threat right now? And then really check and see right now, is that really true? There's a threat right now. And just, it helps my nervous system relax to go, okay, that's not really a threat. But for the identity, it sure feels like it.
And there is an example of a great use of the mind. Discriminating to help, to serve, right? It's really great at that. Give it a job like that.
That's good.
What I got to see in that process was I was feeling somebody was destroying a small community that we'd all set up. And what I got to see was that I didn't want it to be destroyed because I had a status in that community. And then I looked at how did I create this? And it revealed to me, you know, we set it up in such an ad hoc way. There was no structure, there was no agreements, there was no vision. And I was part of setting that up. So I actually set it up to fail by not being willing at the beginning to have the difficult conversations. So, you know, and then I'm grateful for it, for all of that, because then it reveals to me, next time I set up a community, these are the things I can learn from this so we can set it up in a much more effective way. So it's very powerful. Yeah. Thank you.
Your open-mindedness and self-reflection is beautiful, Howard, to witness.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It feels like it feels like a gift to me.
Mm-hmm.
I feel gifted.
Mm-hmm.
Me too. Thank you.
Any other final questions or support? Be selfish.
This is Cindy. I was just thinking about the clearing exercise and how there's a post kind of clearing with myself afterwards, like feeling somewhat incomplete because we haven't gotten into all the normal conversation that I'm used to. So I've been heard, but the other person may not have still, like in the case today, the other person still may not want to engage further than that one clearing conversation. And so do you have some recommendations for how we just emotionally check in with ourselves and clear after the clearing?
Yeah, so there is a step in the clearing model that does say, first we say, do you feel clear? Meaning, have you said everything you need to say and felt everything you need to felt? Then the next part is there a next step? So it might be, yes, there's a next step. Is that what you mean by like another conversation?
Well, I think it's more of the emotional part of like, not getting down and dirty together.
Right.
And so it's like, I could go through the clearing in my head and the emotional acknowledgement is great. And maybe I just have to practice and see that that's all there is needed. But when it's in my head and watching it, I'm like, oh, then afterwards we go our separate ways. And is there more, I guess?
Well, the whole idea is if that's really cleared, I'm going to go, oh my gosh, I feel so open again. There is no problem.
So I've let go of the need for that other person to respond differently or more.
Well, I still might say, hey, in the process, let's just say I realize it's not okay with me that you don't keep your agreements as your manager. So I've cleared everything, so I'm not in a disconnection anymore, but I still say, hey, a next step for me is I'd like to sit down and have a conversation about how we're going to have.
Okay, so it is that next step piece.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There still may be a need for that, or I want to talk about how I want to create an environment in which no one is hitting anybody in the house. If I'm working with my kid.
Right. That's what I was thinking. I was like wondering, wait, there's some boundaries in here or something that still needs to be discussed. So that's the next step.
Yes, so that could be a next step. The idea is, though, I want to discuss them when I don't have this between us anymore.
Okay, thank you. That helps out. Yeah.
Now, and then another thing that does happen is sometimes the person who has just been cleared with might say, well, hang on, I feel like I need to clear now.
Yeah.
So sometimes that's because they got triggered and they want to explain and justify and rationalize, which we don't recommend. That'll all just be coming from below the line. So usually what we say is check and see, can you check the boxes, first of all, at the top so that you're truly above the line to be able to clear back. And we usually recommend taking space and saying, let's have at least an hour, if not half a day or a day before the other person clears back. Now, sometimes that's just not going to happen because maybe we're working in different time zones and this is just when we have the opportunity to clear. So then we'd say, okay, but we would really want to make sure that person who's responding back is checking those boxes.
And then
Okay.
you're also cognizant of switching roles, because it might be the issue that they're responding to is the issue you brought up. So then you get to know that they're revealing themselves to you.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, there's so much here. It takes a lot of practice. A lifetime of practice.
Well, yeah, somebody is saying like we have 30 years of programming one way. It takes a while to deprogram and put a new program in.
Yeah.
So
And I can't think of a better way to spend my time. So it's like.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I have one quick question, and maybe this is a bit idealistic, but if you can get to the point where you have total unconditional positive regard or love for yourself, total acceptance, it seems like a lot of things like gossip and everything will clear up on their own. Is that true?
You mean gossip, meaning the gossip you might have in yourself?
Yeah, anything that arises with it, because it seems to me that almost all these issues relate to a lack of self-love, self-confidence, setting boundaries.
Well, sure, because then I'm just seeing everybody out there and I go, oh, of course people are doing what they're doing. You know, I do that too when I'm scared. And of course people are reactive. And I know that. I can experience that in myself. I love that. So then I'm just like the world's doing itself.
Yeah, you become totally free and you don't even have a desire to gossip because there's no need to prove yourself anymore.
It's just, you know, it's just life doing itself, and I can still have heartbreak about it.
Yes.
And maybe I'm heartbroken and giggling at the same time. You know, like we're just kind of crazy, aren't we? And that's just who we are. And isn't that lovable?
Yeah, you kind of naturally would have less judgment and just a different lens of interpretation when you're coming.
Yeah, I mean, people start to be, for me at least, everybody starts to look kind of funny. You know, we're so funny. We do these, you know, sometimes awful things to one another. Just because there's just people who forgot, you know.
So if you could love yourself enough and love others enough, there would be no problems or if I could do that, there would be few problems in my life.
There wouldn't be any problems with a capital P.
Okay, good.
Right? The kind of problems that cause me to go, oh, react. You know, I'd still have my lowercase problems that go, hey, you know, this is a problem because I really prefer we go this direction. And, you know, but I can do that without reactivity and much more likely to invite other people into a conversation where we can collaborate more effectively.
But this is an area to watch out for spiritual bypass too, though, because you mentioned idealism at the beginning. And so it's one thing to notice that and say, you know what, I just noticed that I don't gossip anymore. And that can happen as you begin to love yourself more. It's another thing to have it be a goal. I'm going to love myself more. And the proof that I love myself is I stop gossiping. And so I stop gossiping. Aren't I really enlightened and wonderful? I don't gossip because I love myself so much.
No, I agree. I agree. And I really appreciate that but I think if the goal is to unconditionally love oneself, all of this takes care of itself to a great degree.
Well, yes. And that's how they become. That's the 15 commitments become a check for that. That really, when you say, oh, am I taking this seriously? Or can I see the fun and the humor in it? And then that will, if you can say yes to all of those, yeah, you're probably in a place where you're accepting what is. And underneath that is love. So for sure. And this then just maps it out.
And you might still be sad and scared and angry sometimes.
Yeah, no, I get that. I understand you might have all of those things arise within you, but you guys don't use the L word a lot, but it seems to me that when you talk about acceptance, when you're saying, when I accept that I'm below the line, that is actually an act of love towards myself. I could use those words and it'd be the same thing, correct?
Oh, absolutely. We would say above the line is a state of love.
Okay.
And people ask, hey, what about love in the core feelings? And what we say, they're all love. So yes, you're right. Love is the water. We don't mention it, and it's the water in many, many ways.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we're just bringing love into the business world. We just call it trust.
You sneaky little people.
You're little sneaky lovers.
Yeah, we're kind of private agents.
All right, you all. So good
Thank
to
you.
see you.
Thank you.
Bye all.
Bye bye.
Next year.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much.